How you doing, buddy?
Hello, all you hardcores out there. How are you doing? It's Russ here from Porky's Corner, biggest gob in sport. Today we're joined by Julian. How you doing, Julian?
I'm all right, mate. A little bit tired. I got up for a fight last night for the Lomachenko fight. First time I've got up middle of the night. Oh,
Yeah.
for ages, mate. Absolutely ages.
What do you think to it?
Brilliant fight. Technically brilliant. Obviously, we didn't have high moments of drama. It was difficult to score a lot of the rounds. A lot of people are crying robbery. I thought Lomachenko won the fight, but when you have it 115, 113 in a fight that is every round is quite close, is that a robbery? Probably not. Did the right man win? Probably not. But I'm not one of these people who'll be jumping up and down about that decision. But it was an amazing fight. Lomachenko was fantastic, and Haney showed he's still got a lot to learn.
I thought Loma won it by 2 rounds. You could say three, but I'm going to give it two. But I don't.
Yeah,
That
7-5.
2 round. Can I just point out that 2 round thing? Now we're going to come to this in a bit. The 2 round margin now is a get out every time in it for either party.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Oh, well, I could see it. It's just 1 round difference and all that. No, it isn't. It's judged over the full course. Do you know what I mean? They need to look at themselves, these judges, and show us how they're getting these scores. I mean, what do you think?
We don't get consistency. That's the problem. I say I thought Lomachenko won the fight, but it's just the wide scores that I have a problem with. I know we'll move on to it, but I, I had a problem with the judge who had it. Will someone score the Chantel Cameron Katie Taylor fight a draw?
One had it a draw, two had it 96, 94. What
I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that draw. I don't care what the matchroom brigade say. I have a real problem with that draw.
Eddie Hearn had it 6-4, so did Sky Nicholson.
Eddie Hearn and Sky Nicholson said exactly the same thing after the fight. That goes, it was either 5-5 or 6-4. So I don't know if they're sharing text messages or brain cells as well as everything else. I got no idea.
You think Eddie's an era learning the lines while Eddie's riding it into battle in his suite?
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's almost like they get this stuff ready before and brief them before the cameras, before.
What do you mean? Like what I've just heard from my mole at the Ingle camp that Kell Brook and his old man and Crusher Ben and them are all writing scripts for intense speed.
They're all writing scripts, mate. You could see Liam Smith was there. Kell Brook was there. So in that massive arena, Kell Brook's doing an interview on a big network, and suddenly Conor Ben just
Oh,
walks
a match your
behind.
unboxing network, by the way.
Oh, is that how it was? So Conor Ben
Match
just
your
walks
unboxing.
behind him and gives him a little nudge. I mean, it couldn't become more scripted, could it really? I mean, this is so Conor Ben. So we
Wrestling. It's like wrestling now.
It's, do you know what? You and I, we've called this Conor Ben pattern of behaviour for since October. It's become cringeworthily scripted. And what we've got now is we had a couple of weeks ago, we had the remorse from Conor Ben, and I'm really sorry, and I'm somebody who's emotional and I overreact. And then what we got last night was the true arrogant, obnoxious Conor Ben, bruv, giving it all. Everybody wants to fight me. So if they thought I were dirty, they won't want to fight me. So everybody knows I'm innocent. So he just won't accept this, will he, whatsoever? And you just think, oh dear, Conor, you'll never learn. And also, do you know what really grates me? And you've got me onto Conor Ben, and I wanted to avoid it and talk about the fantastic fights we had last night. What grates me is you got Conor Ben saying, "Don't mess with me right now, bro. Don't mess with me right now." Right now, he's saying that to Kell Brook, who's a former elite amateur, a former world champion, a former elite professional, who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And Conor Ben hasn't knocked out anybody with a pulse. He doesn't have a 100% knockout rate. There's 6 or 7 guys gone the distance with him. So he's not this devastating crusher. And he's, don't mess with me right now, bro. Do not get in my space. You have a death wish. Like he's a reincarnation of Thomas Hearns. Who's the guy beat who hasn't come out of the retirement home? Nobody. it's unbelievable how this guy's ego is off the scale. Like he's some absolute devastating beast. You'd be fighting for Central Area titles if your surname wasn't Ben. Own it.
Could you imagine if he fought Aaron Pryor?
Oh, Aaron Pryor. Yeah, I mean, you can't even imagine the damage what the Hawk would have done to Conor Benn, can you? Or
what time is it? What time is
Hawk
it?
time.
Hawk time. Hawk
Imagine Thomas Hearns in 78, 79, 80 coming through the Detroit shows and knocking out tough fringe world-class fighters for fun when he was on his way to fighting Pipino Cuevas. Just devastating fashion. And imagine Conor Benn on the end of some of those right hands.
Some of them gatekeepers back then. I mean, I saw an interview with James Toney. Said, who the hardest fight you had? Sanderline Williams. You know, Sanderline Williams. Remember him?
Sanderline Williams fought
Sanderline Williams had right all this middleweight division off now, wasn't he?
All these guys, all those guys at the time, like I said, the Robbie Sims, Hagler's half brother, Sanderline Williams, On Poffo, Frank Fletcher, Juan Roldan, James Hardrock Green, all those guys will be having a party right now with the money that's available. And anybody who says, you're living in the 80s, you two, go on YouTube and have a look at those fighters and just see what you think.
Yeah, it's
Tony Simpson right now. Tony Simpson, wow, how much money would Tony Simpson be making right now?
He'd be on $5 million a fight. He wouldn't even need to be a world champion, would he?
Devastating, mate, wouldn't he? And you got Crusher Ben. Don't get in my space right now. Don't mess with me.
How is he even relevant now, the Crushinator?
Well, he's the only reason I've started watching the DAZN show again. I made the decision last night, a bit of pressure from Hannah. She wanted to see, she loves Katie Taylor. It's like now at least he's going down the process and hopefully he's going to get a little bit of justice. But he's already talking about his next opponent. But it's what you've just said. How is he relevant? How is he relevant? What have you done? I mean, it was a beautiful punch, but your biggest name on your record was Chris Algieri, who they pulled off the broadcasting sofa. They offered him a few quid. He was a guy who now went to work, and instead of wearing hand wraps and a gum shield, the guy went to work wearing a suit and a microphone. He'd become cultured, he'd become civilized. He had in a ring for 2 years. And then they just offered him a few quid and he fought Conor Benn. And you knock him out and you're like, he said something last night. I couldn't help but watch him. I tried to turn off and he said something like, well, I proved I'm number one in Britain, bruv. Have you? Have you won a British title? How have you proved you're number one in Britain? Have you beat any of these guys in the top 4 or 5 in Britain? You haven't even proved you're the best in London. He talks utter drivel, and I just struggle listening to him, mate.
Yeah, it's sad to see him running about with begging bowl. Yeah. And everybody clapping like seals, like the Gad who's back in full force with his blue cigar.
So Conor Benn, as we've said before, Russell, you and I, you're a welterweight, you want to be the world champion. So what are you doing? Calling out, I'll go to 154. He said last night, I'll even go to 168. I could even beat super middleweights. Are you a welterweight or not? And if you are going to face a ban or prove you're innocent or do whatever and box this year or box next year, if you are going to go down that route, then why don't you start fighting some welterweights who are ranked above you and force a mandate against either Spence or Crawford? No, it's like a higher level of what Tommy Fury is doing in Misfits. You're calling out big names, but it's just name association. He's calling out Eubank Jr. He's calling out Kell Brook, who's had his own problems. And Eubank Jr. is just being banged out. But he's kind of mentioning Liam Smith. He's not really shouting too much about Liam Smith. He's like, yeah, I had a bit of a chat to Liam Smith last night. We were all right. I mean, Liam Smith outright has called you a cheating cunt. They
didn't have any beef, did they?
No, that's what I'm thinking. So all Kell Brook has done. So you're picking your fights, Conor. You're a bully. You're a bully like your dad. So all Kell Brook has done is said, if you want the chocolate brownies, let's talk, Eddie. That's just how Kell Brook talks. He hasn't been massively offensive. What Kell Brook didn't do last night, and he hasn't done previously, is go too much into the detail of Conor Benn's adverse findings and say things like, you're a cheat, you're a this, you're that. Kell Brook hasn't done any of that, but Kell Brook got the smoke last night. But Liam Smith, who's as hard as
More
nails,
vocal. He was the first one to come out, Liam Smith.
Liam Smith said several times, you're a cheating cunt. And Conor Benn, yeah, had a bit of a chat to Liam Smith last night. It's business. You got no beef with Liam Smith. And I'll tell you why he's got no beef with Liam Smith. Not only would Liam Smith absolutely pulverize him in a ring, Liam Smith would take him outside the back of the arena and rip his head off, mate.
Liam Smith would take him on hard road or the arena.
Yeah. And he knows
he'd put him on planet orbit.
You can look at Liam Smith and you know a hard lad, don't you? I mean, that sounds silly because some fighters are...
He's not known as beefy for no, is he?
You know he's a hard lad.
Oh, he's got an haircut like a grey tennis ball, but not known as a Terminator, is he, for no?
Yeah, Conor don't want that smoke, does he? He wants the smoke of an old man in Kell Brook, who, let's face it, with him and Amir Khan were creaking like mad. You know, obviously he beat Khan, who was just more shocked than he was. You know, it was simple as that. And he hadn't boxed again for another year. He's had problems outside of the ring. Hopefully he defeats those demons. But he looked old last night, Kell Brook, didn't he? You know, his face was bloated. He had wrinkles. He had lines. He looked quite old, as we've said. But no, there were no pushing Liam Smith and getting in Liam Smith's face because it would have been a bad mistake.
What did you make Eddie keeping Canelo last week, fetching more Mexicans over and knocking Brits about?
I thought that was hilarious. He's been bigging up Gary Cully, and I'm not just saying this. If Anna was here, she'd vouch for me. I get fights wrong and I get fights right. We all do. Now, last night I was watching Gary Cully, and I said to Anna, I says, this guy, they're building up as a future world champion. I says, I think when he gets hit on the chin, he's that brittle. I think this guy will go to sleep. And I said that to Anna. And I was watching the fight in the second round. The Mexican, he'd like 30 KOs in 39 wins.
4 rounds before yesterday,
He's a big puncher, mate, that Mexican. You could see he's got heavy hands, but what he did was the right thing. Sometimes people think against a long-armed puncher, you move to them, you get inside. Sometimes you stay on the outside, you draw the sting, you pick your moments. A bit like Ray Leonard did against Thomas Hearns in 1981. And the Mexican was so savvy, and he was just sitting on the outside, taking his time. And twice in the second round, he checked Cully with a left hook. It was a beautiful long left hook. You never catch a southpaw with a short left hook, a rangy southpaw. And he just checked him with a long left hook. And I went, that's interesting. And then at that point, I think it might have been Andy Lee, but one of the commentators said that Felix he threw 2 right hands to the body and he was looking for the overhand right. And I saw that and I thought, he's going to throw that big overhand bowling right hand. You could see it coming. And I just said to Anna, just watch this, genuinely. And as I said it, bang, he just cracked him. And you know what? The worst thing about that fight was it was typical Matchroom. That referee almost got that Gary Cully killed. He was out on his feet after the first knockdown. He got dropped again, and he clearly couldn't stand. It was all over the place, and Felix was taking 3 shots at his head, and it actually took. Not only was the corner waving the towel, and it was. Did you see the security guard?
Yeah.
I've never seen a security guard try and stop a fight. The security guard was waving and on the ring apron with the referee, like, you need to stop this fight, because he was obviously being told by the corner. It's like unbelievable that you know, if that Mexican had been dropped by Cully with that type of shot, they'd have stopped that fight, mate. But it's one thing giving the home fighter every opportunity to recover. It's another thing going to get him hurt. But the guy's brittle. He's had a good run of KOs, but you know, again, he hasn't got this massive KO percentage like Conor Benn hasn't either. And it's almost like if that's who you're building up, Eddie, as a future world champion, I don't know what to say to you, because he said afterwards, you know, he made a mistake and he switched off and he got a little bit greedy. It's like, no. That Mexican, it's called ringcraft, Eddie. That Mexican knew exactly what he was doing. He'd already checked him a few times, as I've said, and he timed that punch perfectly. And he'd do it again. He had the ringcraft, he had the IQ, been there, done that. And another Matchroom prospect smashed to pieces.
Yeah, poor Eddie's having a mare, isn't he? I mean, Canelo's on slide. Joshua's now gun shy. Crusher Ben's knee deep in drug cases. Who does that leave?
Katie Taylor's just been beaten, which I guess the fight was a brilliant fight, wasn't it? But I know Katie Taylor's obviously was hoping she was going to have the stadium fight after this, the rematch with Serrano. So that's gone, hasn't it? That's completely gone. And you know what? I'm a Katie Taylor fan, Russell. I think she's been brilliant for boxing. She's been the best female boxer I've seen in the last couple of decades. Genuinely think she's been fantastic. But boxing's about being fair, isn't it? And when you beat, you beat. And I thought Chantel Cameron, first of all, absolute credit to Jamie Moore. The tactics were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's one thing people saying Chantel Cameron had to start fast and get on Katie Taylor. That sounds obvious, but the shots she was blocking, the shots she was dipping under, the way she was stepping to the right, and the body work and the way Jamie Moore was giving her that kind of instruction in between rounds, I thought it was fantastic boxer, fantastic coaching, and the bodywork was absolutely savage. And whilst I'm a fan of Katie Taylor, I don't know how anybody can make a case for that fight being a draw. I thought each round was easy to score. I had it 7-3, and it's not like the Lomachenko-Haney fight where the rounds were pretty close, even though I thought Loma won. I thought the 7 rounds that Chantel Cameron won, she won absolutely clearly. And I thought the 3 rounds that Katie Taylor outworked her in, Katie Taylor won those rounds clearly. I don't think there were any round where you could sit down and you have to have a real think about who won that round. So what I'm basically saying is, all right, you've got the rematch clause. You always have the rematch clause when your fighter loses. But Katie Taylor doesn't beat Chantel Cameron again. It won't happen.
What do you reckon to Dennis Hogan Metcalf?
Now then, I watched the first 9 rounds and I had to take the dog out before the two big fights. So I missed the last 3 rounds, but more people I spoke to thought Metcalf got beat than thought he won.
Yeah.
What about you?
I thought I had Hogan winning.
The bits I saw, it was close, but Hogan was just landing some crafty shots. Metcalf's pretty predictable, isn't he? He gets caught, he gets nailed, he works hard, and he's one of those fighters who works hard and presses forward. And ostensibly, it looks like he's having a little bit more success than he actually is. And if you watch it closely under a microscope, he's not having massive success with his work. It's a bit untidy, the shots are scuffing. And I thought Hogan was generally having more cleaner work in more of the rounds. And I don't know what happened in the last 3 rounds. It's one of those, Russell, I'll probably catch up with it today. But it's always the same, isn't it? It's always the same. It's the benefits always goes to the fighter who they want to win every single time.
Yeah, it's what do you think to that Paddy Donovan? 11-0, 8 knockouts, welterweight. He's gone under the radar, hasn't he?
He's a good-looking guy. He's athletic. You can see why he'd be a kind of get a big following. Got a nice style. I know his opponent. He came in at late notice, but he's a decent kid. But
full package him, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a good fighter. He's Paddy Donovan. He got good range. He got really good feet. Sometimes southpaws struggle with other rangy southpaws, but he didn't. I always look at whenever I see that kind of fencing style, and he had that fencing style with Donovan. I always look at the punch selection. So I'll give you an example. So if I look at Sky Nicholson, I think she's really good, but the punch selection is quite limited. Touch, jabs, touch, jabs, left cross, long looping left over the top. But when I watched Donovan, I thought he got really good punch selection. He was throwing the right hand underneath. He was checking with the right hook, the left uppercut, the straight left. I thought his punch selection was really good. You never know at this stage after 11 or 12 fights how much depth someone's got. but I would think he'll have a good career, Russell. He'll do well. He'll get a following. He's had the spotlight on him now on a big show. He has gone under the radar, but hopefully they get some more momentum. But the problem you've got now is Katie Taylor's been beat. Cully's been beat. And obviously Eddie was hoping that Cully would be the next flag bearer for Irish boxing. And then what happens then is he might go under the radar again because which bills do you put him on?
Yeah, what about Tommy Carter, who beat Jay McFarlane?
Yeah, I mean, Jay McFarlane is a character, but I've said this before. You've heard me say this so many times. Any guy who gets into the ring looking like that at 20 odd stone, I can't take him seriously at all. Carty had a really good sort of.
He was walking around with a woman's skirt on and Doc Martens, wasn't he, that McFarlane, wasn't he, in Fight Week?
Just bizarre. I mean,
What is all that about? And Eddie Hearn endorsing it in interviews. I don't want to see that.
I don't want to see that. What I did see was just before the fight started, because I didn't know I'd seen Carty a couple of 4 rounds. I think he stopped Eastern European opposition. I can't remember. And I might have seen highlights of him. But when I saw him on the pads, I turned around to Anna and I said, oh, some pop in that. You know, a well-drilled kid. I think he was in the World Juniors about 11, 12, 13 years ago or something. You know, he's got pedigree all the way back. And he had such a snappy left cross. I thought, this kid looks like he's got some pop. I liked how patient he was. And I just thought, McFarlane, I mean, he'd be a tough guy, wouldn't he? You can imagine him on these bare knuckle brawls, can't you? Fighting in bales of hay, fighting the guys like Decker Heggie. You can imagine him doing that. But as a professional fighter, yeah, I know he's reasonably capable, but I just can't take him seriously getting in the ring looking like that. I just think you got your feet, when you're 20 odd stone and you're 3 stone overweight, you got no coordination. Even if you've got boxing ability, your timing and your coordination's all over the place because you're carrying too much weight. And it was just, I thought he was dreadful. I thought Carty, he looked decent, Russell. He might be one of those heavyweights who people might not fancy fighting down the line.
Yeah, what next for Jay McFarlane?
I don't know. Barbecue and
Misfits, do you think?
or something. Yeah,
He'd be better on Misfits.
He's a cat. Like he looks a real eccentric, doesn't he? He's quite funny when you see him, and he doesn't care, does he? He says it's the first time. I mean, what I did smile at was he said it's the first time he's ever had a proper training camp, and he's the fittest he's ever been, and he gets in the ring looking like that. I'd hate to see him when he hasn't had a training camp and he's not in shape.
Yeah, but what about when they're painting the nails black and stuff and all that kind of stuff? And is that taking it a bit far? You know, we're trying to get your PR out there, do you think?
You and I, okay, always be careful how I say this, but you and I are from a different generation. Yeah. If I'd have painted my nails black, my dad wouldn't have let me in the house, mate. Coal miner, you know, he wouldn't have let me in the house. Or he'd have said, come on, we're going for a walk, me and you, and he'd had a chat to me with my dad. Because I know Gareth A. Davis had the black toenails painted, didn't he? And I just don't know if I'm just old school in many ways, quite traditional in many ways.
Come here, Roxy, come here.
Is that rock? I just think, I guess people will call it fashion, Russell, and I guess you can see me. I'm just a normal guy, mate. I can't do that many fancy hairdos as it is anyway, but I'm just a normal guy, and I find it a bit odd when boxers are doing things like that. But each to his own.
Yeah, it's strange what people are doing that. I mean, I look at some of these YouTube channels. They start up as boxing and combat sports, and then they turn into, well, I'll not go there, but you know what I mean.
Can I get one thing off my chest, Russell? It sounds like I'm having a moment. People always say, you're down on Matchroom. What do you bother watching this stuff for, right? First of all, right, congratulations to Matchroom on a good bill. It was a good bill. There was some interesting fights on there. There was some quality on there. The main event was unbelievable. I thought that main event was a brilliant fight. We had a big upset. on there, and we had a Gargo, we had some good prospects on there. So the bill was a good bill. It was a 7 out of 10. So I'm not knocking the bill. Eddie Hearn can, on occasion, put good bills together. But I'm going to have a little moan now. And this is not Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is, whatever you say about Eddie, he's a boxing fan. He loves it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I always watch Eddie Hearn. Sometimes you can see when you're watching the fights, the 4-round prelims when it's an empty arena, and Eddie will come sit down and he'll watch those fights. He'll watch the kids he wants to watch, and he loves boxing. Now, my partner Anna said to me last night. She said she's not that fussed. I'm glued to the boxing. She says, "Is that Ebony Bridges there?" And I'm like, "Where am I looking?" She was there. She says, "I've been watching her for the past hour and a half." She says she hasn't been off her phone. She hasn't watched one fight. She says, so disrespectful to fellow professionals. And then Anna said to me, she says, "Who's the guy with the glasses?" And I says, "Where am I looking?"
What, Frank?
She says, "The guy next to Eddie Hearn." And she says, "He's not watching, he hasn't watched the boxing either." She says, "He's on his phone, he's looking behind him, he's chatting to people, he gets up and down, he's looking at the sky." I don't know what he's looking at the sky for. She says, "He's not watching any of the boxing." And I just want to get it off my chest. It's like, these guys in the ring putting their life on order. And I think Eddie Hearn, should have a little word with Frank and say, "Frank, get off your phone. We represent these guys. These guys put their life on the line for our entertainment, and they pay our wages. Can you at least have some interest in what's going on in the ring?" And the same for Ebony Bridges. They're only interested in being around it and making money from it. They're not true boxing fans. And then I couldn't help it. I'm trying to watch the action, and I kept glancing at Frank Smith thinking, he's not watching the boxing. And he does. And that's one of the things that grates me. So Eddie Hearn never takes his eyes off the boxing. You've got to give him that. Barry Hearn didn't. Barry Hearn loved boxing. But Frank Smith has got zero interest in what's going on in the ring. And I just find it a bit disrespectful, a bit weird. There was a couple of fights on there there were hard fights. We got blood, we got cuts, we got the lot. And he's not even watching the action. I just find it really rude. And it bothers me, mate, does that. It bothers me.
Yeah, it's not good from that Essex lot, is it? They're all out for themselves, aren't they?
They're just not interested. Yeah, Ebony Bridges, she wasn't off her phone all night. She was just not watching the action all night. Just filming herself, and it's like, you're just a face. You're just interested in just your PR. And I get it. I get what she's done. But at least Frank Smith, these guys, people under your promotional outfit, you're the CEO of Matchroom. You should show an interest in what's going on in that ring. That's really bad. So Eddie, I know you sometimes watch Russell's shows. Have a word with Frank, mate. Tell him to show an interest in those guys who's putting their life on the line.
Eddie, what a tool Eddie is. I heard a story the other day, somebody told me. You know, John Murray, he got he was with Eddie when he got injured, didn't he? And
sound lad is John Murray. Sound lad.
He collared Eddie sometime after and asked him for a couple of tickets. More or less had to beg, and he ended up with 2 tickets. Cheapest ones up in the sky.
In the gods. I mean,
the kid lost his eye to boxing, didn't he? And that.
So I always remember John Murray once made me a coffee when I was over at Joe's. Sykes was sparring Joe Murray, and Joe just says it as it is, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We got there, and he's like, I think John was European champion at the time. He's like, "John, put the kettle on, coffee for me and Jules. Jules, do you take sugar?" And it's just John Murray making the coffee. And I always remember that. It made me smile. And he was such a nice lad, with John Murray, And like I said, the brutal fights that man went in.
John Murray were in some right wars, wasn't he?
Unbelievable wars.
He was red hot, wasn't he, John Murray? Was 30-odd-0, wasn't he, at one point, wasn't he?
Was it Kevin Mitchell who was the first to beat him? And it was a brilliant fight with Kevin Mitchell. And then the name escapes me of the guy who fought for the world title. He used to really struggle with his weight. It'll come back to me. And that was a savage fight. But John Murray was just an ultimate fighter, wasn't he? He was an absolute warrior. And as you say, you can't even get a pair of ringside tickets from these guys. It's bad.
Rios, didn't he? Brandon Rios.
Brandon Rios, that's the one. He was always struggled with the weight.
Did he injure his eye in qualify, his last one?
Yeah, that's right. That was at the
But
MEM, wasn't it?
that'd have been on an Eddie show then, wouldn't it? Probably. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was on
but
an Eddie show.
what did he go? What did he do? Give him a couple of 40 quid tickets.
Yeah, cheapest tickets in Radar Pink Clouds.
But that's my point. That covers my previous point. A passionate
Yeah,
boxing
but he
fan.
lost his eye, didn't he, at Crawler fight for 30 grand. Do you know what
Yeah,
I
so
mean? That's pretty, 30 grand for headlining that show.
and that's my point, Russell. He could have given Ebony Bridges and Frank Smith could have given their ringside seats up to ex-fighters who are actually interested in watching what's going on because they weren't bothered. I think that's my point. It's it's just disrespectful, isn't it? But good show, Eddie. I enjoyed the show.
Yeah, it was a decent show, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But
Credit.
Eddie's struggling now, isn't it? What do you think to Terry Harper and Brackhouse fight being off?
Bizarre. It's utterly bizarre. It's always
Why
it's
didn't they have a plan B in case any of them got injured?
you got to have a plan B for big fights. They always have a stand-in, don't they? It's just
Yeah.
even on the
Think
day
Eddie
of the
missed
fight.
ball there, thinking, yeah, they'll both be all right. Roll dice on it, do you think?
I mean, I don't know how he developed. Did she have flu or cold? And they said that she genuinely did have an infection or she was run down. But flus and colds don't develop in the space of a few hours, do they? These things, you get signs days, 2 or 3 days before. And I found it, I found it strange that they didn't at least she didn't have a 10 rounder against somebody. And just very, very strange. Really hard for Terry Harper. It's hard for fighters and trainers and managers when that happens. But it's even harder for the people who have bought tickets and hotels. And like I said, you go to Dublin, 2 or 3 days in Dublin, you're one of Terry Harper's family, and I think she was quite upset about that. That was the first thing she said, and it's brutal, isn't it? It's like they've bought outfits, they've booked tickets, the hotels, they've had the hair done, the nails done, black nails.
People around here went.
They would have done, and then all they've had is a bit of an anticlimactic night. And it's all right saying, yeah, but it's a great night of boxing. But you're a Terry Harper fan, you're only going to see Terry Harper, aren't you?
She'll still get paid. They'll get it
It's
from insurance, won't they?
I'm sure they will, but it's harsh, isn't it? And I think you said she was out next week. She's going to box next week.
Oh, well, she might not be getting paid if she's out next
Yeah,
week.
if she's boxing next week, she'll get
They'll
compensated.
cover her expenses and we'll get her out next week then, but it'll not be the same money, will it?
No, it won't.
See, that's it. They're not back foot working with him, aren't they, then? Because if they don't win, where are they going to go?
Well, that's the thing. You can't turn around to him and say, "I want this and I want that." You're in a situation where he's like,
Really, Steffi really be wanting to say, Eddie, you're having a laugh, aren't you?
you can't do, can he?
Do it through insurance if the girls pull that. Do it through insurance. You'll get paid out, Eddie, and pay us what we would have got.
You know what happened, mate? They'll take what they'll.
Yeah, but that's how it should happen, and it does happen. There is promoters that do that.
Yeah, of course there are. It's a bit
I've
like
known Dennis pay people when they're out before and somebody's pulled out. You go through insurance. All shows are backed by Lloyd's of London.
it's like floaters. Whenever you get a floater who, a 4 round undercard fight who's on a big bill, there's times people are gloved up. I've had it myself with fighters, and Tyrone Nurse, who Chris Aston trained, his son, he was on the undercard of the Lascanio Hatton fight. He was gloved up. We'd warmed him up a couple of times. He was ready to go. The previous fights went longer than people expected. Tyrone didn't box. He still got paid. It's not his fault. His opponent got paid. And you've done all the training. You don't get paid just for the fight, do you? You get paid for the 10, 12, 14 weeks training camp you've had and all the expenses you've incurred.
Yeah, it's what do you think to McGuigan and Dubois splitting?
I don't know what it's about. It's one of them. It's like people split and you don't hear much about it. And then in 3 to 6 months' time, you'll hear something, won't you? There'll be someone somewhere is going to start getting a little bit bitter about the situation and a few little sniper comments. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have thought McGuigan's a good coach. I wouldn't have thought McGuigan was the right coach for Dubois. And I don't know what you can give Dubois anyway. I really don't. I think my views on him. Big puncher. He will get badly exposed again quite soon. And not everyone can be a world champion, but I think there'd be 10, 15 heavyweights in the division who could beat Dubois easily. I just don't rate him that much.
No?
He's a puncher. He's heavy-handed. It's not enough, Russell. You got to be able to position yourself to let those shots go. But you got to have a temperament to be a really good top boxer. You have to have a great temperament, and he doesn't. And his last fight, he won the fight. He came back to win the fight, but sometimes you get through tough stages because your opponent lets you off the hook, not because you've got the temperament to come through that. And I think I just don't think Dubois is that great. I genuinely don't. I think
big stiff.
I think Dubois, right? Okay, you get these interim titles. He beat the Michelin man, didn't he? Was it Trevor Bryant? He beat that guy. It was a disgraceful. If he was a world champion, he might be the worst world champion I've ever seen, apart from Charles Martin. So you win an interim belt like that. But realistically, if you said to me, could Dubois, and you might disagree, would Dubois beat Fabio Wardley? I'd say no. I think there are fighters. I think like 2 or 3 fights of people like the Solomon Akers would beat Dubois. I mean, Jared Anderson, what would he do to Dubois? I mean, come on. He's not. These belts make fighters look a little bit better than they are, and you know, I'd be asking as well. He's still ranked higher than Joe Joyce, isn't he?
Yeah.
But how does that happen when Joe Joyce towelled him? It's a bizarre situation, isn't it? Realistically, he's about a number 15 to 20 heavyweights, Dubois. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah. It's not as bizarre situation as Dylan White, the can man. Anybody who wants it can get it because he's in a right predicament now, isn't he? Reaching out to Bricktop slot.
How quickly they are forgotten. I wonder if he'll get tickets off Eddie in 10 years' time, or if he'll be consigned to the cheap seats as well, like John. It is what it is. It's a brutal game, isn't it? Stop this. Everybody's your friend. And I do think that because I don't think Eddie wanted Dillian to fight Fury, did he? Because they won the purse bids, and he really
you know what? Once he did that, it was a team set a match, wasn't it? Really,
you could see it, couldn't you? As soon as he did that, and then Dean White started saying a few things he wasn't happy with, but it just shows the politics of boxing, doesn't it? I know we're running out of time, but I'll tell you what also showed the politics of boxing was Chantel Cameron last night. She was unhappy on social media 12, 18 months ago. She wasn't getting the love from Matchroom, was she? She couldn't get any interest from Matchroom. She was way down the bills, fighting once a flood. And she picks up 4 belts, and Eddie thinks those belts will be great for Katie Taylor's homecoming. Never mind saying it was a dangerous fight. They thought Katie Taylor would be way too quick for Chantel Cameron. And all of a sudden, they've got an unpopular champion. So I'll very quickly say, rematch clauses. I'm so... How does a challenger get a rematch with a champion who's just beat her and beat her convincingly? How does that happen? So this rematch clause, so had Andy Ruiz been knocked out in the first round by Anthony Joshua in New York, would he have got a rematch?
No, Chantel Cameron, what champion?
Yeah, had Katie Taylor absolutely whitewashed Chantel Cameron last night, would she get a rematch?
No.
So Eddie's rematch clause is, I want my fighters to have a rematch if they get beat, and I don't want them to get beat. That's his rematch clause. If they win, no rematch. If it's unpopular, no rematch. They pick and choose the rematch clause. I'd love to see those contracts, mate.
I would. Well, we're out of time, Julian. So have a great day, what's left of it. All the best, my friend.
Catch up soon. You take care, mate. You and your family.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Thanks, buddy.
All you interested in making a few quid in tough times, get in touch, pokecorner@mail.com. All you got to do is share a link. 50 quid a lead you get if it sells or not. If it sells, you get your commission. Got to be in it to win it. Cheaper than a lottery ticket, innit? So come and see your Uncle Porky. You know it makes sense. Peace out. Pop, pop, bang! End of bum.